Collective, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You showed up rare and they treated you like clearance. Not because you weren't valuable, but because their spirit wasn't wealthy enough to receive you. Nine of Cups reversed. They wished for love, then rejected it when it looked like effort. Now they stuck chasing empty highs because your kind of real don't come twice. Seven of Swords, they played the game, thought they were getting over, but all they did was steal from their own future. Spirit saw the deceit and pulled you out just in time. Queen of Wands, you didn't just glow, you lit the way, and now that light is gone. They finally seeing how dark it always was without you. Spirit says they didn't recognize the blessing because they were too busy comparing it to basic, but you were never meant to stay where you be undervalued. You were the upgrade and they just weren't ready. Say return to sender if you're done accepting low vibrations in luxury spaces. Aries, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You moved with fire and they acted like your love was disposable. They didn't know how to handle passion without control, so they tried to dim you instead of matching your spark. Nine of Cups reversed. They wanted fireworks but weren't ready for the burn. Now they miss the thrill, but you're no longer available for shallow desires. Seven of Swords. They told half-truths, hid behind ego, tried to outplay the one who gave from the heart. But Spirit clocked it and pulled you back before they drained your power. Queen of Wands. You're not for the faint of heart. You lead, you inspire, you ignite. And they fumbled that kind of heat. Now they cold, wishing they had what they disrespected. Spirit says, you gave fire, they gave fear, but you were never meant to burn for someone who won't even spark for you. Say return to sender if they mistook your fire for a flame they could blow out. Taurus, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You gave loyalty, peace, and consistency, but they were addicted to chaos. You were a home. They chose a hotel. Now they aching for the stability they threw away. Nine of Cups reversed. They thought comfort was boring until discomfort became their norm. Now they starving for what once felt so secure. Seven of Swords. They moved sneaky, tried to test your patience, but every lie was a crack in the foundation. And Spirit refused to let you build on broken trust. Queen of Wands, you're sensual, grounded, magnetic. They mistook your softness for simplicity, but you were always power in velvet form, and they'll never find that again. Spirit says they underestimated your value because they couldn't comprehend wealth they didn't earn, but you were never cheap. They were just broken. Spirit say, return to sender if you're done being the peace in someone else's storm. Gemini, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You brought wit, wonder, and movement, but they couldn't keep up. You gave conversation. They gave confusion. Now they missing the spark they couldn't comprehend. Nine of Cups reversed. They said you were too much, when really you were a mirror, showing them all the parts they refused to grow. Now they lonely in rooms that feel quiet without your presence. Seven of Swords, they gaslit you, played mind games, but you caught on quick, and Spirit helped you pivot before you became stuck in their pattern. Queen of Wands, you're electric, dynamic, a force that reinvents and inspires. They didn't lose control, they lost access. Spirit says they wanted a puppet, but you came with your own mind, and now that you're gone, they finally realize there's no substitute for your magic. Say, return to sender if you're done explaining your worth to people who can't keep up mentally or spiritually. Cancer, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You gave them sanctuary, held them when life hit too hard, but they mistook your softness for weakness and broke the very heart that protected theirs. Nine of Cups reversed. They wanted comfort without commitment, took all your nurturing and gave nothing back. Now they drowning in emptiness because they lost the only soul that felt like home. Seven of Swords. They lied by omission, kept secrets behind your back. But Spirit saw the betrayal before you did and wrapped you in protection when your love left you exposed. Queen of Wands, you are divine in emotion and power, a quiet storm that builds empires from intuition. They thought they had time, but you walked away and took the light with you. Spirit says, you were love in its purest form, and they chose survival over soul, but you were never meant to stay where love has to beg to be seen. Say return to sender if you're done loving people who don't value your depth. Leo, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You brought light to their world, celebrated them like royalty, but they got addicted to your glow and forgot who lit the flame in the first place. Nine of Cups reversed. They soaked in your affection but refused to return the energy. Now they feel the void because your absence is louder than your presence ever had to be. Seven of Swords. They played you, tried to dim your shine in private while benefiting from your loyalty in public. Spirit said nope and cut the cord before they drained your pride. Queen of Wands, you were the main character, the muse, the masterpiece, and they treated you like a background extra. Now they watching you win from the shadows they chose. Spirit says you were the spotlight. They just couldn't handle their own reflection, but you were never the problem. You were the pedestal they weren't tall enough to reach. Say return to sender if they couldn't match your frequency, only your presence. Virgo, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You brought order to their chaos, clarity to their confusion, and they still took your value for granted because broken people fear being seen whole. Nine of Cups reversed. They said you were too critical. But really, you just saw through the illusion. Now they surrounded by messes, wishing for the peace they threw away. Seven of Swords. They tried to outsmart you, forgetting you are the detail. Spirit peeped every plan and made sure the exit came before the damage. Queen of Wands. You carry quiet power, the kind that builds from behind the scenes. They underestimated your strength. Now they realizing the glue is gone and everything is falling apart. Spirit says you weren't too much. You were too precise for their chaos. And the truth is, people who lack discipline rarely value what's divine. Say return to sender if they couldn't rise to the standard they secretly admired in you. Libra, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You gave balance, showed them what harmony could look like, but they chose drama because peace scared someone who's only known chaos. Nine of Cups reversed. They took your love like it was owed, never realizing how rare it was to feel seen and held like that. Now they out here entertaining noise, wishing for the silence you used to bring. Seven of Swords. They played both sides, told you half truths and still expected grace. But Spirit tipped the scale and removed you from the game. Queen of Wands, you were elegance with fire, beauty with backbone. They thought they could manipulate the mediator, but you were always in control of the narrative. Spirit says they didn't want fairness, they wanted favor, but you were never meant to keep someone's ego in balance while yours stayed bruised. Say, return to sender if they took your peace and gave you pressure. Scorpio, you were the gift, they just had cheap taste. You offered soul deep connection, gave them access to your shadow and your light, but they flinched at the intensity and treated sacred like it was casual. Nine of Cups reversed. They craved depth until they drowned in it. Now they searching for surface level replacements, but none of them touched the parts of them you already knew. Seven of Swords. They lied thinking you'd never know, but Spirit whispered what your intuition already screamed. They thought they were slick, but you were 3 steps ahead the whole time. Queen of Wands, you loved with fire and mystery. You are the transformation. They ran from the very mirror that could have helped them evolve. Spirit says you were truth in a world of illusions and they weren't ready to heal, but you were never meant to stay where growth is feared. Say return to sender if they feared your power because it required them to face their own. Sagittarius, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You brought freedom and vision, expanded their world, but they wanted to keep you in a box because growth scared someone who wasn't done playing small. Nine of Cups reversed. They had a blessing in their arms and still felt empty. Now they chasing thrills, but none of them come with your depth or your direction. Seven of Swords, they tried to run game, but you were already on your way out. Spirit lit your path before they even realized you were leaving. Queen of Wands. You're a trailblazer, the wild spark that makes life worth living. And they tried to contain you. Now they stuck in routine while you glow in expansion. Spirit says you were never too much. They were just too rooted in stagnation to keep up, but your absence is the freedom they didn't know they'd regret. Say return to sender if you're done dimming your light for people scared of the journey. Capricorn, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You showed up solid, held them down like no one else did. but they confused your stability with control and walked away from the very anchor that kept them grounded. Nine of Cups reversed. They wanted reward without responsibility, pleasure without presence. Now they stuck in cycles, wishing for the consistency they called boring. Seven of Swords. They were sneaky, tried to work around your standards, but Spirit don't play about those who show up real, so you got pulled out before they could drain your foundation. Queen of Wands, you are power with purpose, a quiet storm that builds empires. They didn't know how to handle someone who never needed them. Now they out here begging for what they once ignored. Spirit says you were the blueprint and they were never ready for construction, but you'll never lose what's yours by walking away from what wasn't. Say, return to sender if you're done being loyal to people who can't carry their weight. Aquarius, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You brought new perspective, taught them what love with freedom looks like, but they couldn't understand something they couldn't control. So they tried to box in a soul that was built to fly. Nine of Cups reversed. They wanted connection, but not transformation. Now they miss your insight, and every random thought feels lonely without your mind beside it. Seven of Swords. They moved in silence, thinking they could outsmart someone born in the future. Spirit showed you the truth, and you detached before the damage could reach your spirit. Queen of Wands, your innovation would allure. Your power is in how little you need to force. They didn't get it back then, but now they see you were the breakthrough they prayed for and passed up. Spirit says you weren't confusing. You were just ahead. And not everyone is ready for the type of love that doesn't play by tradition. Say return to sender if you're done shrinking your evolution for basic comfort. Pisces, you were the gift. They just had cheap taste. You gave dream love poured from a soul that felt too deep for this world, and they sipped like it was ordinary because they'd never known a love that didn't come with conditions. Nine of Cups reversed. They felt full but not worthy, so they self-sabotaged. Now they aching for the very magic they once drowned in. Seven of Swords. They moved with shadows, took your kindness for naivety, but Spirit revealed what you already felt and pulled you from the fog before they could trap you in it. Queen of Wands, you're mystic, magnetic, a healer who gives without asking, and they fumbled that divinity trying to turn your waves into something shallow. Spirit says you were their mirror and their medicine, but they chose distance over depth. Now you've pulled back your energy and they're lost in the silence of your absence. Say return to sender if you're done watering gardens that never bloomed with you in it.